INEOS to make some shock changes to Manchester United's footballing structure after Dan Ashworth's departure. David Ornstein has confirmed that Vivell will step up in the January window, and Vivell has two transfers planned. What is the latest on the transfer news? We've been linked to Dibbling, Lema, Alphonso Davies, Victor Osimhen. We've been linked to many players. Obviously, other updates on Amad Diallo's new deal, Ashworth versus Ratcliffe. What really went on? Some shock stories about the structure and what's going on behind the scenes, and talk of a new director of football. Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news roundup. If you do enjoy today's video, guys, please do go ahead and hit that like button, and feel free to subscribe down below if you're new, because I'm on 98,896 subscribers at the time of making this video, so I'm only 4 subscribers away from 98.9k, which means 1,104 subscribers away from the big 100k. But let's start by talking about Manchester City. The Manchester City trial concluded yesterday. In the next few months, it will be deliberated. But interestingly, the original 115 charges has now been extended to 130 charges. 130 charges. I mean, money talks if they get away with this. I mean, that's a crazy amount of charges. Look what Everton and Forest got punished for, and they did a lot less than what City have allegedly done. City refused to give the Premier League the data and documents they needed. They refused to cooperate. They threatened to sue the Premier League. They threatened to leave. They threatened to start a new league. Everything they did was absolutely awful behaviour-wise, but they've lawyered up, they spent a lot of money on this, and there's rumours that they obviously, with their position of power, have put a lot of pressure on the government to find them not guilty. So part of me thinks they'll only be found guilty for the lesser charges and probably have a minimal punishment, but we all know that a big punishment could be bound for City, because there's 130 charges for a reason, and we'll know probably January or February what's gone on there. But let's talk about the bigger club in Manchester, the more important club in Manchester, the club that does not cheat, can actually sell out their stadium. Let's talk about Manchester United. Christopher Vivell will be very heavily involved in the January transfer window for Manchester United, said David Ornstein on the Athletic podcast. So, Vivell was somewhat involved in the summer, but now that Dan Ashworth has gone, Vivell's very much going to be stepping up in terms of recruitment. He is the sole guy in recruitment. We know that he brought in Saku Kone. He likes to bring in these young gems. He's obviously stepping up and going to have a big role, which is interesting. What could be happening in January? Man United are expected to be busy during the January transfer window and could bring 1 or 2 new signings in if deemed the right fit. INEOS believe acquiring an athletic midfielder and left wing back in January is possible. They also like a centre back and striker, but they see that as summer moves. Additionally, 3 or 4 players are expected to be made available for sale to raise funds. Vivell is anticipated to play a significant role in January. There was also talk about Anthony and Eriksson being 2 of the players up for sale in January to raise funds. United could also be open to the sale of Casemiro, was a rumour going about. Lindelof, Evans obviously expected to leave for free in the summer, but there could be a somewhat busy January window inside United, which will be interesting to see. It was said that Manchester United were recently impressed by the performances of Konrad Laimer. However, there's currently no contact with his management and no other discussions taking place at this time. United's focus remains on other transfer targets for now, and Laimer wants to stay at Bayern Munich. So we obviously were linked to Laimer. Vivell, again, has connections to the player, so with him doing recruitment doesn't shock me. Ragnick obviously suggested him. Good player, good midfielder, but don't know if it's going to happen. I think January is going to be difficult in terms of getting who we want in. I think it's easier to get it in the summer, but I think United are looking for a technical and athletically good midfielder to just improve that area. It was also said that Manchester United are among the clubs eyeing a potential move for Tyler Dibbling. The Southampton have set an asking price of 21 million. I mean, 21 million for Tyler Dibbling is very good value for money. He's someone I'd sign and then probably loan him out for a year, maybe. The only thing is, as much as I like Tyler Dibbling, as good as I think he could be, I think Man United need more players that are ready now. Højlund's incredibly young. Garnacho's incredibly young. Ahmed is young, but I think, he's been amazing. Yoro's so young. Maino's so young. I think we do need to sign someone that's maybe like 23, 24, sort of like they're very ready now. And I think Tyler Dibbling is arguably Southampton's best player, and you could argue in that sense he is ready now, but it is a bit of a risk, if you get what I mean. So let's continue on into the structural changes that INEOS will be making big decisions on. So this was said by David Ornstein via his podcast that Ashworth's appointment came more from the INEOS side. The fundamental part was that Jim Ratcliffe and Ashworth did not get on. He did not rate him to the extent he thought he did, which is why Ashworth had been sacked. It was said that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's axing of Dan Ashworth just 159 days after being appointed as sporting director has added to the growing sense of unease and concern amongst young staff. If they're prepared to do that to a sporting director hired at a great cost, that we spent 7 months trying to hire, after just 5 months, what about the rest of us? One staff told The Telegraph. And what they've done with Ashworth is brutal. Now, I wanted Ashworth to be given time. I think Ashworth would have been a great appointment, and I don't believe that he wanted Southgate because the Tier 1 sources said he never wanted Southgate. I believe he maybe had different and more patient views to the INEOS hierarchy, and maybe he was sacked because they don't see him as a fit. But I always thought if we give Ashworth time, we could see what he did. Now, sacking Ashworth may end up being the right decision. It may end up being a silly decision. I think it just concerns me how rash it was. I have no issue with INEOS being ruthless, but they're cancelling the staff's Christmas party. They've made 250 redundancies. They put all that money into getting Ashworth. They bring in all these coaches in the summer and sacked. That's not being effective with the money. Be ruthless all you want, but if you're only going to be ruthless with the staff and you're not going to be ruthless with the player, it's not a good look. If you're going to extend this ruthlessness to the players, fair enough, but that's what you've got to do. But interestingly, it was said that Manchester United will not replace Dan Ashworth. The club have ditched the role of sporting director and made some shock changes to the structure to have no sporting director. Now, this has come from Neil Custers of The Sun, who's probably the most dog-shite journalist out there. He makes loads of stuff up. But it's also come through Matt Hughes Media as well, who's a bit more credible than Custis of The Sun. So it's one to keep an eye on, but there is talk that temporarily Vivell and Wilcox are going to step into Ashworth's role. And there is talk that INEOS might think that it was a bit overcrowded at the top and might not bring in a sporting director because there was too many people at the top. There's a lot of rumours if we're going to bring a sporting director in or not, but we'll have to see what happens over the coming weeks. But I know that Vivell and Wilcox will be taking Ashworth's role. INEOS had decided to sack Ten Hag wasn't before they even got in the door. Totally accurate that Ashworth wanted to give Ten Hag more time, and after the international break, Sir Jim's view was somebody had to fix it or he would. So what the Muppeteers are saying is the reason Ashworth was fixed is because Ashworth was sacked was he was more than willing to give Ten Hag time, but Ratcliffe was like no, and Ratcliffe got annoyed at Ashworth for not sacking Ten Hag, so Ratcliffe took matters into his own hands, sacked Ten Hag, sacked Ashworth, which he shouldn't do. But I do think it was the right decision to sack Ten Hag. Omar Barada stepped up and started looking at managers, making calls and getting in touch with people. Dan Ashworth didn't. INEOS thought Omar Barada was decisive. The decision to hire Dan Ashworth wasn't Barada's, it came from Brailsford. So apparently Dan Ashworth wasn't that involved in looking for a new manager, was more than willing to give Ten Hag time. Obviously brought in psychologists and stuff to work with Ten Hag, but Barada went out there, started looking at new managers, which obviously impressed Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It said that Barada started doing Ashworth's duties. The decision to hire Ashworth was made long before United made contact with Barada, and Wilcox was appointed at the crest of Barada. INEOS had been incredibly impressed with Wilcox. Wilcox had to sack Ten Hag. So I think what it is Barada wanted Wilcox in. Barada chose Wilcox to come in. Ashworth and Barada meant to be working closely together. Barada's just a level ahead of Ashworth, and Barada didn't appoint or bring in Ashworth, and maybe they had a lot of difficulties working together. They could not build that relationship because Ashworth is more of a let's take time, let's be patient, let's figure things out, and Barada's like, no, we've got to get this shite done sort of approach. Continuing on. In the eye of INEOS, there wasn't total alignment between Barada, Wilcox, and Amarin over issues such as squad, academy, and recruitment. We know that Dan Ashworth said no to Xerxes and Delict. Dan Ashworth said yes to Agati, Mazraoui, and Yoro, but no to Xerxes and Delict. We know that he wasn't happy with that. It was said they wouldn't be surprised if there was no replacement for Ashworth, and potentially INEOS may kind of shock changes to the structure of just Vivell and, of course, Wilcox working further up. I believe Dan Ashworth did bring in Vivell to work with him, though, so it's interesting that he's stepping up, but they must be quite happy with that as well. It was also said that United are making progress on a new deal for Amad. I tell you what, if we lose Amad Diallo on a free, I think I would absolutely lose it with this club. One of the only good things about this club right now is the youth and players like Amad Diallo. So if we ended up losing him for free, I think I would go crazy. But United are working on a new deal. He's obviously playing a lot under Amarin. Very happy under Amarin. The feeling is now if Ten Hag was here, he probably wouldn't sign that new deal. But now Amarin's here and he's feeling quite happy on the Amarin. There's a feeling he is going to sign that new deal, which is good. But listen, people, that was a 10-minute roundup of all the latest Manchester United news. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will be back tonight with a live stream, and then again tomorrow morning with another news 10-minute roundup. Every single morning, or sort of afternoon, morning, late morning, I do 10-minute roundup of Manchester United news daily to keep you guys up to date. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye.